you, Laura, gur Margot, Bali of Galer, Cordia Gael, agus Canada, to Unfalcha Rove and Seanuk. It's a great pleasure to be with you this evening, virtually, of course, for our first ever cross-Canada, coast-to-coast celebration of Bloomsday. Before we get on to that, I just want to say a few words about the moment we're living in now. We're living in very testing times, and the past few months, I know, have been very hard on everyone, as we've all had to adjust to a new world in lockdown and to measure the tragic cost of lives damaged, lost, and livelihoods threatened by the global pandemic. I know that many of you looking in tonight have been touched by loss or separation. Here at the embassy, we mourn the very recent loss of our dearly departed friend and former colleague, Michael Hurley, and we mourn the loss of all of our friends in the Irish Canadian community who have passed since the pandemic began. We remember them all tonight. As spring gives way to summer, it's been heartening to see the gradual reopening in Ireland and here in Canada. I don't know about you, but I've never been terribly excited at the prospect of a haircut, but I'm finally getting one tomorrow and I can't wait. And this cap has both a Joycean and a hair covering purpose for the evening that's in it. I think there is a real yearning now for experiences that bring us all together in this time of separation. And we know that culture has a unique power in that regard. And we're blessed in Ireland with a rich and flourishing literary culture, which it's our privilege as the Embassy of Ireland to help promote here in Canada. And what better way to showcase the best of Irish literary culture than via the subjects of tonight's event, James Joyce and Ulysses. Now, some of you may be new to the world of Ulysses and its protagonist, Leopold Bloom. So for those of you who are tuning in who don't know, Bloomsday is celebrated on June 16th each year, marking the day in 1904 in which the novel is set. It's also the date of James Joyce's first outing with his wife-to-be, Nora Barnacle, but you'll hear more about that in the performances later. Ulysses is, I think, very well renowned for being one of the most difficult books to read. But for those of you who do take the plunge, you'll find one of the most detailed and affectionate portraits of Dublin in all of literature. If you're not ready yet to tackle the book, tonight's performances will give you a sense of life in Dublin on June the 16th, 1904, as well as a vivid exploration of the adventures of Leopold Bloom, Stephen Dedalus, Molly Bloom, Buck Mulligan, and so many more of Joyce's vibrant and often controversial tales. My late grandfather was born in Dublin City, in the centre of Dublin, just a few months after that Bloomsday, and he lived all of his life in Patrick Street, between the two cathedrals, St. Patrick's and Christ Church. And I can still hear the rhythms and the idioms of his speech and the dry Dublin humour. And that'll be reflected, I know, from having heard some of our performance tonight in the performances that you're going to be treated to this evening. Bloomsday celebration has a long and proud history in Canada. And one of our performers tonight, Andy Jones, held Canada's first ever Bloomsday in the early 1980s in Newfoundland. Toronto Bloomsday, founded in 1986 by Mary Durkin, who joins us this evening as well, was intended as a one-off festival, but still runs annually with great success. Festival Bloomsday Montreal has only been in existence since 2012, but it's grown rapidly to be one of the biggest Bloomsday festivals outside of Ireland. Ottawa Bloomsday, our partners this evening, have been performing for 10 years, and we had planned to have them in the residence this year for a special Bloomsday event. But as that wasn't possible, the Ottawa group instead have generously agreed to be our co-presenters for tonight. And indeed, this event would not have been possible without the great work of Rosemary O'Brien and her partner, my colleague in the embassy, Laura Finley. And I want to say a big thank you to the two of them in particular, and indeed all of you involved in making tonight possible. So we're delighted to be joined for tonight's event by our friends in Toronto Bloomsday, and Festival Bloomsday Montreal, as well as guest readers Sharon Brown in Vancouver and Andy Jones in Newfoundland. Necessity is the mother of invention, or so they say, and the COVID constraints that are on us all have inspired us to try to be a little bit ambitious this evening and to find a new way of working to organise this first ever coast-to-coast Bloomsday event in Canada. To do so, of course, we're relying on the wonders of technology, including Zoom and YouTube, and we hope that the tech gods will be kind to us and that everything will run smoothly. But as Laura said, if any issues arise, we'll be persisting and we'll get through it. And we'll ask you to bear in mind Joyce's own words when he said that mistakes are the portals of discovery. So we will keep that in mind ourselves and do our very best to smooth out any gremlins. So to Cosula Gumgum, one of Shiv Galer Tanavas on Oakage special to shop. And I hope that you really enjoyed this evening. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Bloomsday event. And I'm going to hand over now to my good friend and colleague, Frank Flood, our Consul General in Vancouver, to say a very quick word on the West Coast, on the other side of the country, before we get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Ambassador. It's a real pleasure to join this unique virtual initiative to celebrate Bloomsday in Canada. On behalf of the Consulate in Vancouver and the Irish community in British Columbia, I would like to sincerely thank the Embassy and all concerned in Ottawa in organising today's event, particularly, of course, your good self and Laura Finley, because in these days of COVID-19, we can't feel disconnected with each other. So it is great to take this great special day of Bloomsday to help us link all together. The Consulate opened in October 2018, and we've had many cultural events, mostly around St. Patrick's Day, etc. But we've never had the chance to actually do anything on Bloomsday. So I know in the past the Irish community here have done things in Prince George and Victoria. So we'd hope to build on this initiative today, as we really, really welcome it, and to celebrate Bloomsday together. And it's great to have all our friends, our Canadian friends and Irish friends, and friends of Ireland all across Canada, and to be linking in with them, because sometimes you can feel a bit on the West Coast, on the West Coast too much, if you know what I mean. So it's great to link in and to have this Canada-wide celebration. And finally, I would like to thank Sharon Brown, who is representing British Columbia, and I know she'll do a great job, and to wish her and all the artists concerned every success today. Verbu August Bannock, August Gurlamila Blair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Frank, and thanks very much, Ambassador. So I guess we'll start moving with our show tonight. So before we begin, I guess it's only prudent to say a little bit about all of our performers today, and also to thank them for giving up their time so generously for the past few weeks. Putting these scripts together is of course no mean feat, and they've been also fantastic for helping us get this over the line. And of course I couldn't have done any of it without Rosemary O'Brien in Ottawa Bloomsday, so a huge thanks to her. I suppose we'll start off in Newfoundland, because as I said, it's a full coast-to-coast thing. So we've got Andy Jones, who's our first Bloom tonight. He's joined us, as I said, all the way from Newfoundland. He's a well-known actor and writer based in St. John's. He was the organizer of Canada's first ever Bloomsday in the early 80s. Then we have, in Montreal, we've got Susan Gilmore and Alan Lombard. So Susan has been performing with the Montreal Bloomsday group since its inception in 2011 and is an active participant in community theatre. For this exceptional year, her husband, Alan Lombard, has agreed to read the role of questioner for this performance. Greater love hath no man, as Susan says. Then we go to Ottawa, where we've got Ian Ash, who's a graduate of Trinity College, and as such has a deep understanding of Buck Mulligan's insolent personality. Myself and Porrick Finlay, our next performer, both went to UCD, so we have more of an understanding of Joyce and less of an understanding of Buck Mulligan. But Porrick was an engineering graduate, and as I said, he was from the alma mater of James Joyce. He was with the Tara Players in Ottawa and likes things theatrical. He's intrigued by Ulysses and the mind of Leopold Bloom, who he tries to understand and explain to whoever will listen. Then Margot Harvey O'Kelly is our Molly for tonight. She's born in Dublin, moved to Edmonton in 1988, founding member of the Celtic Arts Society of Alberta. When she moved to Ottawa in 2008, she joined the Tara Players Theatre of Ottawa, where she acted and directed. Then we've Niamh O'Brien, also known as Gertie McDowell. She's an Ottawa teacher, which she believes will help her understand the plight of the teenager when she reads for Gertie McDowell tonight. Then Phil O'Brien. It's a real O'Brien party here tonight, but Philip O'Brien is born and bred in Ottawa, identifies with Bloom, and he has meandered around Dublin while waiting for his next adventure and for his wife to finish shopping. Then we have a great contingent with us from Toronto tonight, starting with Mary Durkin, who's Dublin born and started Toronto Bloomsday in 1986, which, as the ambassador said, was supposed to be a once-off celebration, but is still going strong to this day. Joe Allen, as light relief from saving lives in an emergency hospital, Joe discovered Ulysses. Des Ellis was born in Dublin, where he worked as an actor there and in London before coming to Canada in 1972, and he's not ready to leave yet. Daniel Giverin is most famous for playing Benjamin Fry in The Mummy 3, The Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. We've got Richard Hart, which this Bloomsday actually marks Richard's 20th year of a member of Anna Livia Productions and Bloomsday Toronto. So congratulations on that 20th anniversary. Then we have Kevin Kennedy. He's born and bred and buttered in Westport, County Mayo. He took a sharp left turn in 1968 and found himself in Canada. David Mackett's theatre company, Fly on the Wall, has produced a number of plays by a favourite playwright, Conor McPherson. And last, but by absolutely no means least, in Vancouver, we've got Sharon Brown, who's tonight's Miss Lydia Douche. Sharon's been a regular contributor to the Celtic Connection in Vancouver since 1991, writing reviews of Irish books. The first review she did, incidentally, was a fascinating biography of Joyce's muse and wife, Nora Barnacle, and we're lucky to have her join us tonight. So on with the show. Some of our audience may be new to Joyce, and some of you may be seasoned Joyce fans and know exactly what to expect from an evening like this. To our newbies, I say, be warned, it's not all PG-13. James Joyce's Ulysses is 265,222 words, typically printed over 700 pages. So, you could read it in a couple of hours some evening. It's known as one of the most difficult books to read. Many have tried, but few have finished. I myself tried when I was a teenager, which did not end well, but I will go back to it someday, because you all know, and many of you at home know, that Ulysses is at once mischievous, complex, absurd, it's puzzling, it's frustrating, it's innovative, irreverent, insightful, scandalous, shocking, dealing explicitly with bodily and sexual functions, but is also funny and very human. Dear viewer, fear not. You do not have to read it all, because here to summarize it in about 2 minutes is Leopold Bloom himself.
Bloom. Bloom's the name. Leopold Bloom. Or Poldy, as Molly the missus calls me. I am a Dubliner of Jewish extraction, a purveyor of quality advertisements, and a wanderer in mind and in body. Today is the 16th of June, 1904, my day, Bloomsday. Today I emerge from my house on Ethel Street and I encounter many characters as I meander through the streets of Dublin. I visit Weston Row Post Office, All Hallows Church, Sweeney's the Chemist, the Turkish Baths, Glasnevin Cemetery, the Evening Telegraph newspaper office, Davy Byrne's pub, the National Library, the Ormond Hotel, Barney Kiernan's pub, Sandymount Strand, the Mater Hospital, and eventually Bella Cowan's brothel in Nighttown. And that is where I joined Stephen Dedalus, an aspiring author who starts his day at the Martello Tower in Sandycove, teaches school in Dalkey, and perambulates along Sandymount Strand. Various characters encountered include Buck Mulligan, a medical student, Mr. Deasy, a schoolmaster, Simon Dedalus, Stephen's father, Paddy Dignam, a corpse. Professor McHugh, a philosopher, Blazes Boylan, an impresario, who I think is impressing Molly, the wife, Gertie McDowell, a young girl, Mina Purefoy, who gives birth, Bella Cowan, the Madame of the brothel, Ladies of the Night, Stephen's dead mother, and many, many other interesting characters. After adventures and hallucinations in Nighttown, Stephen and I both end up in my house in the early morning. And that is where Molly the missus, in her bed upstairs, reminisces about her various encounters she has had in her mind and in her body. Yes. Yes.
We'll hand over now to Buck Mulligan at the Martello Tower. Buck Mulligan is a medical student. He shaves and insults the Catholic Church. Stephen Daedalus, an aspiring writer who he nicknames Kinch, and Heens, a somewhat pompous Englishman.
Stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead wearing a bowl of lather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. A yellow dressing gown, ungirdled, was sustained gently behind him by the mid-morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned, Introibo et altare Dei. Come up, Kinch. Come up, you fearful Jesuit. For this, O dearly beloved, is the genuine Christie. Body and soul and blood and wounds. Slow music, please. Shut your eyes, gents. Silence all. Kinch, give us a loan of your nose rag to wipe my razor. The bard's nose rag, a new colour for our Irish poets. Snot green, you can almost taste it, can't you? The sea, the snot green sea, the scrotum tightening sea. She is our sweet, great mother. Now you and your mother, Kinch, you could have knelt down, damn it, when your dying mother asked you. You refused. There is something sinister about you, Kinch. Our guest Haynes, God, isn't he dreadful? A ponderous Saxon. God, these bloody English, bursting with money and indigestion. Because he comes from Oxford, Kinch, he can't make you out and thinks you're not a gentleman. But you have a real Oxford manner. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Yes. Bread, honey, tea and eggs, and milk from the old woman with the can. Now, let us take a swim. Is this the day for monthly wash, Kinch? The unclean bard makes a point of washing once a month. Eat a tower and a few for a pint, will you? And hurry up to your school kip and bring back some money. Kinch, you know the ballad of Joking Jesus? I'm the queerest young fella that ever you heard. My mother's a Jew and my father's a bird. With Joseph the joiner I cannot agree. So here's to disciples and Calvary. If anyone thinks I am divine, he'll get no free drinks when I'm making the wine. But have to drink water and wish it were plain when I make all the wine become water again. Goodbye now, goodbye. Write down all I said. Tell Tom, Dick, and Harry I rose from the dead. What's bred in the bone cannot fail me to fly. And Olivet's breezy, goodbye now, goodbye.
On the morning of June 16th, 1904, Mr. Leopold Bloom of 7 Eccles Street is up preparing breakfast for his wife, Molly. That is, Marion Bloom, soprano, who was upstairs sleeping.
Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowls. He liked thick giblet soup, nutty gizzards, a stuffed roast heart, liver slices fried with crust crumbs, fried hen cod's roes. Most of all, he liked the grilled mutton kidneys, which gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly scented urine. Kidneys were in his mind as he moved about the kitchen softly, writing her breakfast things on the humpy tray. Gelid light and air were in the kitchen, but out of doors, gentle summer morning everywhere made him feel a bit peckish. The coals were reddening. Another slice of bread and butter, 3, 4. Right, she didn't like her plate full. Right. He turned from the tray, lifting the kettle off the hob and set it sideways on the fire. It sat there, dull and squat, its spout stuck out. A cup of tea soon. Good. Mouth dry. The cat walked stiffly round the leg of the table with tail on high. Oh, there you are. The cat mewed in answer and stalked again stiffly round a leg of the table, mewing. Just how she stalks over my writing table. Brrr. Scratch my head. Mr. Bloom watched curiously, kindly, the lithe black form, clean to see the gloss of her sleek hide, the white button under the butt of her tail, the green flashing eyes. He bent down to her, his hands on his knees. Milk for the pussins. We call them stupid. They understand what we say better than we understand them. She understands all she wants to. Vindictive too, cruel, her nature. Curious mice never squeal. Seem to like it. Wonder what I look like to her. Height of a tower? No, she can jump me. Afraid of the chicken she is. Afraid of the chooks. I never saw such a stupid pussins as the pussins. She blinked up out of her avid, shame-closing eyes, mewing plaintively and long. He went to the dresser, took the jug Hanlon's milkman had just filled for him, poured warm bubbled milk on a saucer, and set it slowly on the floor. Brrr, she cried, running to lap. I wonder, is it true if you clip them, they can't mouse after? Why? They shine in the dark, perhaps, the tips, or kind of feelers in the dark, perhaps. Ham and eggs. No good eggs with this drought. Thursday. Not a good day either for mutton kidney at Buckley's. Fried with butter, a shake of pepper. Better a pork kidney at Douglas's. While the kettle is boiling, she lapped slower, then licking the saucer clean. There's nothing she can eat here. No. On quietly creaking boots, he went up the staircase to the hall, paused by the bedroom door. She might like something tasty. Thin bread and butter she likes in the morning, still perhaps, once in a way. I'm going round the corner. I'll be back in a minute. You don't want anything for breakfast? A sleepy, soft grunt answered.
No.
No, she didn't want anything. He heard then a warm, heavy sigh, softer, as she turned over and the loose brass quoits of the bedstead jingled. Must get those settled, really. Pity, all the way from Gibraltar. She's forgotten any little Spanish she knew. I wonder what her father gave for it. Old style. Ah, yes, of course. He bought it at the governor's auction. They got a short knock, Hard as nails at a bargain, old Tweedy. On the doorstep, he felt in his hip pocket for the latchkey. Not there. In the trousers I left off. I must get it. Potato I have. It looked shut. That's all right till I come back anyhow. He crossed to the bright side. It'll be a warm day, I fancy, especially in these black clothes. We'll feel it more. Black conducts, reflects, refracts, is it? The heat. Well, I couldn't go in that light suit. I'd make a picnic of it. His eyelids sank quietly, often, as he walked in happy warmth. Makes you feel young. Somewhere in the east, early morning, to set off at dawn, travel round in front of the sun, steal a day's march on him, keep it up forever. You'd never grow a day older, technically. He approached Larry O'Rourke's. From the cellar grating floated up the flabby gush of porter. It was a good house, however, just the end of city traffic. Bald head over the blind. Cute old codger. No use canvassing him for an ad. Simon Dedalus takes him off to a T with his eyes screwed up. Do you know what I'm going to tell you? What's that, Mr. O'Rourke? Do you know what? The Russians, they'd only be an 8 o'clock breakfast for the Japanese. Where do they get the money? Coming up red-headed curates from the County Leitrim, rinsing empties in the cellar, then, lo and behold, they blossom out as Adam Findlaters or Dan Tallons. And think of the competition. General thirst. A good puzzle would be cross Dublin without passing a pub. He halted by Gluglass's window. A kidney oozed blood gouts on the willow patterned dish. The last. He stood by the next door girl at the counter. Would she buy it too? Calling the items from a slip in her hand. Chapped. Washing soda. His eyes rested on her vigorous hips. Strong pair of arms. Whacking a carpet on the clothesline. She does whack it, by George. The way her crooked skirt swings at each whack, swinging whack by whack by whack. The pork butcher snapped 2 sheets from the pile, wrapped up her prime sausage. Now, my miss, he said. She tendered a coin, smiling boldly. Thank you, my miss. Now, for you, please. Mr. Bloom pointed quickly. Oh, to catch up and walk behind her if she went slowly. Behind her slow-moving hands. Pleasant thing to see first thing in the morning. Hurry up, damn it. Make hay while the sun shines. She stood outside the shop in sunlight and sauntered lazily to the right. 3 pence, please. Thank you, sir. Another time. Good morning, he said, moving away. Good morning, sir. No sign. Gone. What matter? He walked back along Dorset Street, then turned into Eccles Street, hurrying homeward. Well, I am here now. Yes, I am here now. Morning mouth, bad images, got up wrong side of the bed. Must begin again those Sandow's exercises. On the hands, down. To smell the gentle smoke of tea, fume of the pan, sizzling butter. Be near her ample bed-warm flesh. Yes, yes. Quick, warm sunlight came running from Berkeley Road, swiftly in slim sandals along the brightening footpath. Runs, she runs to meet me. A girl with golden hair on the wind. 2 letters and a card lay on the hall floor. He stooped and gathered them. Mrs. Marion Bloom. His quickened heart slowed at once. Bold hand. Mrs. Marion.
Poldy!
Entering the bedroom, he half closed his eyes and walked through the warm yellow twilight toward her tousled head.
Who are the letters for?
He looked at them. Mullingar, Millie. A letter for me from Millie, and a card for you, and a letter for you. He dropped her card and letter on the twill bedspread near the curve of her leg. Do you want the blind up? Letting the blind up by gentle tugs halfway, his backward eye saw her glance at the letter and tuck it under her pillow. Will that do? She was reading the card, propped on her elbow.
She got the things.
He waited till she had laid the card aside and curled herself back slowly with a snug sigh.
Oh, hurry up with that tea. I'm parched.
The kettle is boiling,
Hmm.
but he delayed to clear the chair. Her striped petticoat and tossed soil linen, and he lifted all in an armful onto the foot of the bed. As he went down the kitchen stairs, she called,
Baldy,
"What?"
scald the teapot.
On the boil, sure enough, a plume of steam from the spout. He scalded and rinsed out the teapot and put in 4 full spoons of tea, tilting the kettle then to let the water flow in. Having set it to draw, he took off the kettle, crushed the pan flat on the live coals, and watched the lump of butter slide and melt. While he unwrapped the kidney, the cat mewed hungrily against him. Give her too much meat, she won't mouse. Say they won't eat pork. Kosher. Here. He let the blood-smeared paper fall to her and dropped the kidney amid the sizzling butter sauce. Pepper. He sprinkled it through his fingers ring-wise from the chipped egg cup. He prodded a fork into the kidney and slapped it over, then fitted the teapot on the tray. Its hump bumped as he took it up. Everything on it, bread and butter, 4, sugar, spoon, her cream. Yes. He carried it upstairs, his thumb hooked into the teapot handle. Nudging the door open with his knee, he carried the tray in and set it on the chair by the bedhead. She set the brasses jingling as she raised herself briskly, an elbow on the pillow. He looked calmly down on her bulk and between her large, soft bubs, sloping within her nightdress like a she-goat's udder. The warmth of her couch body rose on the air, mingling with the fragrance of the tea she poured. A strip of torn envelope peeped from under the dimpled pillow. In the act of going, he stayed to straighten the bedspread. So, who was the letter from?
Oh, Boylan. He's bringing the program.
What are you singing?
Latched around with J.C. Doyle and Love's Old Sweet Song.
Her full lips, drinking, smiled. Rather stale smell that incense leaves next day, like foul flower water. Would you like the window open a little? She doubled a slice of bread into her mouth, asking,
What time is Dignam's funeral?
11, I think. I didn't see the paper. Following the pointing of her finger, he took up a leg of her soiled drawers from the bed. No. Then a twisted gray garter looped around a stocking, rumpled, a shiny sole.
No, that book.
Other stocking, her petticoat.
Oh, it must have fell down.
He felt here and there. Volio e non vorrei. I wonder if she pronounces that right. Volio. Not in the bed. Must have slid down. He stopped and lifted the valance. The book, fallen, sprawled against the bulge of the orange-keyed chamber pot.
Show here. I put a mark in it. There's a word I wanted to ask you.
She swallowed a draught of tea and began to search the text with a hairpin till she reached the word.
Met him what? Here. What does that mean?
He leaned downward and read near her polished thumbnail. Metempsychosis?
Yeah. Who's he when he's at home?
Metempsychosis, it's Greek, from the Greek. That means the transmigration of souls.
Oh, rocks. Tell us in plain words.
He smiled, glancing askance at her mocking eyes. The same young eyes. That first night after the charades. Dolphin's Barn. Did you finish it?
Yeah. There's nothing smutty in it. Is she in love with the first fellow all the time?
I never read it. Do you want another?
Yeah. Get another of Paul de Cox. Nice name he has.
She poured more tea into her cup, watching it flow sideways. Reincarnation, that's the word. Some people believe that we go on living in another's body after death, that we lived before. They call it reincarnation, that we all lived before on the earth thousands of years ago or some other planet. They say that we have forgotten it. Some say they remember their past lives. Metempsychosis is what the ancient Greeks called it. Her spoon ceased to stir up the sugar. She gazed straight before her, inhaling through her arched nostrils.
There's a smell of born. Did you leave anything on the fire?
The kidney! He fitted the book roughly into his inner pocket and, stubbing his toes against the broken commode, hurried out towards the smell, stepping hastily down the stairs with a hurried stork's leg. Pungent smoke shot up in an angry jet from a side of the pan. By prodding a prong of the fork under the kidney, he detached it and turned it turtle on its back. Only a little burnt. He tossed it off the pan onto the plate and let the scanty brown gravy trickle over it. A cup of tea now. He shore away the burnt flesh and flung it to the cat. Then he put a forkful into his mouth. Done to a turn. Oh, a mouthful of tea. He creased out Millie's letter at his side, reading it slowly as he chewed, sopping a die of bread in the gravy and raising it to his mouth. 15 yesterday. Curious. 15th of the month, too. Her first birthday away from home. Separation. I remember the summer morning she was born, running to knock up Mrs. Thornton on Denzile Street. A jolly old woman. Lots of babies she must have helped into the world. She knew from the first that poor little Rudy wouldn't live. Well, God is good, sir. She knew at once. He would be 11 now if he had lived. He drank a draught of cooler tea to wash down his meal. Then he read the letter again, twice.
Now it's 9:45 a.m. Bloom is on Westland Row. This scene has Bloom pop into All Hallows Church. He comments on the communion, the host, the use of Latin, and how using wine makes service more aristocratic. Leaving the church, he sees he has time to go to Sweeney's the chemist to get a lotion made up, and comments on the tram and the buildings he passes by on the way to the chemist.
Bloom had reached the open back door of All Hallows. Stepping into the porch, he doffed his hat, took the card from his pocket, and tucked it again behind the leather headband. The cold smell of sacred stone called him. He trod the worn steps, pushed the swing door, and entered softly by the rear. Something going on, some sodality. Pity so empty. Nice discreet place to be next to some girl. Women knelt in the benches with crimson halters round their necks, heads bowed. A batch knelt at the altar rails. The priest went along by them, murmuring, holding the thing in his hands. He stopped at each, took out a communion, shook a drop or two. Are they in water? And put it neatly into her mouth. Her hat and head sank. Then the next one, a small old woman. The priest bent down to put it into her mouth, murmuring all the time, Latin. The next one, shut your eyes and open your mouth. What? Corpus, body, corpse. Good idea, the Latin. stupefies them first. Hospice for the dying. They don't seem to chew it, only swallow it down. He stood aside, watching their blind mass pass down the aisle, one by one, and seek their places. He approached a bench and seated himself in its corner, nursing his hat and newspaper. These pots we have to wear. We ought to have hats modeled on our heads. They were about him, here and there, with heads still bowed in their crimson halters, waiting for it to melt in their stomachs. Something like those matzah. It's that sort of bread, unleavened showbread. Look at them. Now, I bet it makes them feel happy. Lollipop. It does. Yes, bread of angels, it's called. There's a big idea behind it, kind of kingdom of God is within you feel. First communicants, hokey pokey, penny a lump. Didn't feel like all one family party, same in the theater, all in the same swim. They do, I'm sure of that. Not so lonely in our confraternity. Then come out a bit spreeish, let off steam. Thing is, if you really believe in it, Lourdes cure, waters of oblivion, and the knock apparition, statues bleeding, old fella asleep near that confession box, hence those snores. Blind faith, safe in the arms of kingdom come, lulls all pain. Wait this time next year. He saw the priest stow the communion cup away, well in, and kneel an instant before it, showing a large gray boot sole from under the lace affair he had on. Suppose he lost a pin of it. He wouldn't know what to do. Bald spot behind, letters on his back. I-N-R-I. No, I-H-S. Molly told me one time, I asked her, I have sinned. Or no, I have suffered it is. And the other one, iron nails ran in. The priest was rinsing out the chalice. Then he tossed off the dregs smartly. Wine makes it more aristocratic than, for example, if you drank what they are used to, Guinness's porter, or some temperance beverage, Wheatley's Dublin hop bitters, or Cantrell and Cochrane's ginger ale, aromatic. Doesn't give them any of it. Show wine, only the other. Cold comfort, pious fraud, but quite right. Otherwise, they'd have one old boozer worse than the other coming along caging for a drink. Queer, the whole atmosphere of it. Quite right, perfectly right that is. Mr. Bloom looked back towards the choir. Not going to be any music. Pity, who's the organ here, I wonder? Old Glenn, he knew how to make that instrument talk. The vibrato, £50 a year they say he had at Gardiner Street. Molly was in fine voice that day. The Stabat Mater of Rossini. Father Bernard Van's sermon first. Christ our pilot. Christ, but don't keep us up all night over it. Music they wanted. Foot drill stopped. Could hear a pin drop. I told her to pitch her voice against that corner. I could feel the thrill in the air, the people looking up. He saw the priest bend down and kiss the altar, and then face about and bless all the people. All crossed themselves and stood up. Mr. Bloom glanced about him and then stood up, looking over the risen hats. Stand up at the gospel, of course. Then all settled down on their knees again, and he sat back quietly on his bench. The priest came down from the altar, holding the thing out from him, and he and the mass boy answered each other in Latin. He stood a moment, unseeing by the cold black marble bowl, while before him and behind, two worshippers dipped furtive hands in the low tide of holy water. Trams, a car of Prescott's dye works. A widow in her weeds. Notice because I'm in mourning myself. He covered himself. How goes the time? 1:15. Time enough yet. Better get that lotion made up. Where is this? Ah, yes, the last time. Sweeney's in Lincoln Place. Chemists rarely move. Their green and bold beacon jars too heavy to stir. Hamilton Long's, founded in the year of the flood. Huguenot church near there. Visit someday. He walked southward along Westland Road. But the recipe's in the other trousers. Oh, and I forgot the latchkey too. More this funeral affair. Oh, well, poor fellow, it's not his fault. When was it I got it made up last? Wait, I changed the sovereign. I remember, 1st of the month. It must have been on the 2nd. Oh, he can look it up in the prescriptions book. The chemist turned back page after page. Sandy, shriveled, smelly seems to have, shrunken skull and old quest for the philosopher's stone, the alchemist, drugs aid you after mental excitement, lethargy then. Why? Reaction, a lifetime in a night. Gradually changes your character, living all the day among herbs, ointments, disinfectants, all his alabaster lily pots, mortar and pestle, smell almost cure you like the dentist's doorbell, Dr. Whack. He ought to physic himself a bit, electuary or emulsion. The first fella that picked an herb to cure himself had a bit of pluck.
Now we head to Davy Byrne's pub, where Bloom enjoys a gorgonzola cheese sandwich and drinks a glass of burgundy and reminisces about his first lovemaking with Molly, which occurred on the Hill of Hope. Stuck on the window pane, 2 flies buzzed, stuck.
Hidden under wild ferns on Howth below us, bay sleeping. Sky, no sound, the sky. The bay purple by Lion's Head, green by Drumleek, yellow-green towards Sutton. Fields of undersea, the lines faint brown in grass. Buried cities. Pillowed on my coat, she had her hair. Earwigs in the heather scrub, my hand under her nape, she'll toss me off. Oh, wonder, cool, soft with ointments, her hand touched me, caressed. Her eyes open upon me, did not turn away. Ravished over her I lay, full lips, full open, kissed her mouth. Yum! Softly she gave me in my mouth the seed cake warm and chewed. Mawkish pulp her mouth had mumbled sweet sour of her spittle. Joy, I ate it, joy. Young life, her lips they gave me pouting, warm, soft, sticky, gum jelly lips. Flowers her eyes were, take me, willing eyes. Pebbles fell. She lay still. Ha, a goat. No one. High on Ben Howth rhododendrons, a nanny goat walking sure-footed, dropped currants. Plop, plop, plop. Below, screened under ferns, she laughed, warm-folded. Wildly I lay on her, kissed her eyes, her lips, her stretched neck beating, woman's breasts full in her blouse of nun's veiling, fat nipples upright, hot, I tongued her, she kissed me, I was kissed, all yielding she tossed my hair, kissed, she kissed me and me now. Yes.
It's 3:40 p.m. A barmaid in the Ormond Hotel, gossiping and giggling with her girlfriend, Miss Nina Kennedy.
Bronze by gold, Miss Juice's head by Miss Kennedy's head, over the cross blind of the Ormond bar, heard the vice-regal hoofs go by, ringing steels. Is that her? Asked Miss Kennedy. Miss Juice said, yes, sitting with his ex, pearl gray and eau de nil. Exquisite contrast, Miss Kennedy said. When all agog, Miss Juice said eagerly, look at the fella in the tall silk. Gold, where? Gold asked more eagerly. In the second carriage. Miss Juice's wet lips said, laughing in the sun. He's looking, mine till I see. She darted, bronze, to the backmost corner, flattening her face against the pane in a halo of hurried breath. Her wet lips tittered. He's killed, looking back. She laughed. Oh, wet. Aren't men frightful idiots? With sadness. Miss Kennedy sauntered sadly from bright light, twining a loose hair behind an ear. Sauntering sadly, gold no more, she twined a hair. Sadly, she twined in sauntering gold hair behind a curving ear. It's them has the fine times, sadly, she said. A man, Blue Hoo went by, Moulang's pipes bearing in his breast the sweets of sin, by wine's antiques in memory, bearing sweet, sinful words, by Carol's dusky, battered plate. For Raoul. The boots to them in the bar, them barmaids came, for them unheeding him. He banged on the counter his tray of chattering china. And there's your teas, he said. Miss Kennedy, with manners, transposed the tea tray down to an upturned lithia crate, safe from eyes low. What is it? Loud Boots unmannerly asked. Find out, Miss Douce retorted, leaving her spine point. Your beau, is it? A haughty Bronze replied. I'll complain to Mrs. Damacy on you if I hear any more of your impertinent insolence. Impertinent, thin, Boots snout sniffed rudely as he retreated, as she threatened as he had come. Bloom, on her flower, frowning Miss Douce said, most aggravating that young brat is. If he doesn't conduct himself, I'll wring his ear for him a yard long. Ladylike in exquisite contrast. Take no notice, Miss Kennedy rejoined. She poured in a teacup tea, then back in the teapot tea. They cowered under their reef of counter, waiting on footstools, crates upturned, waiting for their teas to draw. They pawed their blouses, both of black satin, 2 and 9 a yard, waiting for their teas to draw, and 2 and 7. Yes, bronze from an ear, by gold from afar, heard steel from an ear. Hoofs ring from afar and heard steel hoofs, ring hoof, ring steel. Am I awfully sunburnt? Miss Bronze unbloused her neck. No, said Miss Kennedy. It gets brown after. Did you try the borax with the cherry laurel water? Miss Douce half stood to see her skin askance in the bar mirror, gilded lettered, where hawk and claret glasses shimmered, and in their midst, a shell. And leave it to my hands, she said. Try it with the glycerin, Miss Kennedy advised. Bidding her neck and hands adieu, Miss Douce. Those things only bring out a rash, replied, receded. I asked that old fogey in Boyd's for something for my skin. Miss Kennedy, pouring new full-drawn tea, grimaced and prayed, oh, don't remind me of him, for mercy's sake. But wait till I tell you, Miss Douce entreated. Sweet tea, Miss Kennedy, having poured with milk, plugged both 2 ears with little fingers. No, don't, she cried. I won't listen, she cried. But Bloom, Miss Douce grunted in snuffy fogey's tone. For your what, says he. Miss Kennedy unplugged her ears to hear, to speak, but prayed again. Don't let me think of him or I'll expire. The hideous old wretch. That night in the Antian concert rooms, she sipped distastefully her brewed hot tea, a sip, sipped sweet tea. Here he was, Miss Douce said, cocking her bronze head 3/4, ruffling her nose wings. Oofa, oofa. Shrill shriek of laughter sprang from Miss Kennedy's throat. Miss Douce huffed and snorted down her nostrils that quivered, imper-thin, like a shout in quest. Oh, shrieking, Miss Kennedy cried, will you ever forget his goggle eye? Miss Douce chimed in deep bronze laughter, shouting, and your other eye. Blue-Who's dark eye read Aaron Figatner's name. Why do I always think Figather? Gathering figs, I think, and Prosper Lore's Huguenot name. By Bassie's Blessed Virgins, Bloom's dark eyes went by. Blue-robed, white under, come to me. God, they believe she is a goddess. Those today I could not see. That fellow spoke, a student, after, with Daedalus' son. He might be Mulligan. All comely virgins, that brings those rakes of fellows in, her white. By went his eyes, the sweets of sin, sweet are the sweets of sin. In a giggling peal, young Gold Bronze voices blended. Deuce with Kennedy, your other eye. They threw young heads back, Bronze giggle Gold, to let free fly their laughter, screaming, your other, signals to each other, high piercing notes. Ah, panting, sighing, fordone their mirth died down. Miss Kennedy lipped her cup again, raised, drank a sip, and giggled. Miss Deuce, bending again over the tea tray, ruffled again her nose and roll fattened eyes. Again, Kenny giggles, stooping her hair pinnacles of hair, stooping, her tortoise nape comb showed, spluttered out of her mouth, her tea, choking in tea and laughter, coughing with choking, crying, oh, greasy eyes, imagine being married to a man like that, she cried, with his bit of beard. Deuce gave full vent to a splendid yell, a full yell of full woman delight, joy, indignation. Married to the greasy nose, she yelled. Shrill with deep laughter, after bronze and gold, they urged each to peal after peal, ringing in the changes, bronze, gold, gold, bronze, shrill, deep, to laughter after laughter, and then laughed more. Greasy eye nose. Exhausted, breathless, their shaken heads they laid, braided and pinnacled but glossy combed, against the counter ledge, all flushed. Oh, panting, sweating. Oh, all breathless. Married to Bloom, to Grease-a Bloom. Oh, saints above, Miss Deuce said, sighed above her jumping rose. I wish I hadn't laughed so much. I feel all wet. Oh, Miss Deuce, Miss Kennedy protested, you horrid thing. And flushed yet more. You horrid, more goldenly. By Cantwell's offices roved Grease-a Bloom by Cheppy's virgins, bright of their oils. Nanetti's father hawked those things about, wheedling at doors as I. Religion pays. Must see him about Keys Par. Eat first, I want, not yet. At 4, she said, time ever passing, clock hands turning, on, where eat? The Clarence, Dolphin, on, for Raoul, eat. If I net 5 guineas with those ads, the violet silk petticoats, not yet, the sweets of sin, flushed less, still less goldenly paled. Into their bar strolled Mr. Dedalus. Chips, picking chips off one of his rocky thumbnails. Chips, he strolled. Oh, welcome back, Miss Deuce. He held her hand. Enjoyed her holidays? Tip-top. He hoped she had nice weather in Rostravar. Gorgeous, she said. Look at the holy show I am, lying out on the strand all day. Bronze whiteness. That was exceedingly naughty of you, Mr. Dedalus told her, and pressed her hand indulgently. Tempting, poor, simple males. Miss Deuce of Satin deuced her arm away. Go away, she said. You're very simple, I don't think. He was. Well, now I am, he mused. I looked so simple in the cradle, they christened me Simple Simon. You must have been a doty, Miss Deuce made answer. And what did the doctor order today? Well, now, he mused, whatever you say yourself. I think I'll trouble you for some fresh water and a half glass of whiskey. Jingle. With the greatest alacrity, Miss Deuce agreed. With grace of alacrity towards the mirror, gilt Cantrell and Cochrane's, she turned herself. With grace, she tapped a measure of gold whiskey from her crystal keg. Forth from the skirt of his coat, Mr. Dedalus brought pouch and pipe. Alacrity she served. He blew through the flute 2 husky fife notes. By Jove, he mused, I often wanted to see the Mourne Mountains. Must be a great tonic in the air down there. But a long threatening comes at last, they say. Yes, yes, yes. He fingered shreds of hair, her maiden hair, her mermaids into the bowl. Chips, shreds, musing, mute. None not. said nothing. Yes. Gaily, Miss Douce polished a tumbler, trilling, "Oh, Idolorous, queen of the eastern seas." Was Mr. Lidwell in today? In came Lenehan. Round him peered Lenehan. Mr. Bloom reached Essex Bridge. Yes, Mr. Bloom crossed a bridge of Essex. "To Martha I must write, by paper, dailies, girl there civil." Bloom, old Bloom, Blue Bloom is on the rye. "He was in at lunchtime," Miss Douce said. Lenehan came forward. "Was Mr. Boylan looking for me?" he asked. She answered. "Miss Kennedy, was Mr. Boylan in while I was upstairs?" she asked. Miss Voice of Kennedy answered, a second teacup poised, her gaze upon a page. No, he was not. Miss Gaze of Kennedy heard, not seen, read on. Lenehan round the sandwich bell wound his round body round. Beep! Who's in the corner? No glance of Kennedy rewarding him, he yet made overtures to mind her stops, to read only the black ones, round O and crooked S. Jingle, jaunty, jingle. Girl Gold, she read and did not glance, take no notice. She took no notice while he read by rote a Sulpha fable for her, plappering flatly. A fox met a stork. Said the fox to the stork, "Will you put your bill down in my throat and pull up a bone?" He droned in vain. Miss Douce turned to her tea aside. He sighed, ha me, ha my. He greeted Mr. Dedalus and got a nod. Greetings from the famous son of a famous father. Who may he be? Mr. Dedalus asked. Lenehan opened most genial arms. Who may he be? He asked. Can you ask? Stephen, the youthful bard. Dry. Mr. Dedalus, famous father, laid by his dry-filled pipe. I see, he said. I didn't recognize him for the moment. I hear he is keeping very select company. Have you seen him lately? He had. I quaffed the nectar bowl with him this very day, said Lenehan. In Mooney's-en-Ville and in Mooney-sur-Mer, he had received the rhino for the labor of his muse. He smiled at Bronze's tea-bathed lips, at listening lips and eyes. The elite of Erin hung upon his lips. The ponderous pundit, Hugh McHugh, Dublin's most brilliant scribe and editor, that minstrel boy of the wild wet west who is known by the euphonious appellation of the O'Madden Burke. After an interval, Mr. Dedalus raised his grog, and that must have been highly diverting, said he. I see. He drank with faraway morning mountain eye, set down his glass. He looked towards the saloon door. I see you have moved the piano. The tuner was in today, Miss Douce replied, tuning it for the smoking concert, and I never heard such an exquisite player. Is that a fact? Didn't he, Miss Kennedy? The real classical, you know, and blind too, poor fellow. Not 20, I'm sure he was. Is that a fact, Mr. Dedalus said. He drank and strayed away. So sad to look at his face, Miss Douce condoled. God's curse on bitch's bastard. Tink to her pity, cried a diner's bell. To the door of the dining room came bald Pat, came bothered Pat, came Pat, waiter of Vermont, lager for diner, lager without alacrity she served. With patience, Lenehan waited for Boylan, with impatience, for Jingle Jaunty Blaze's boy. Upholding the lid, he, who gazed in the coffin, at the oblique triple, piano wires. He pressed, the same who pressed indulgently her hand, soft pedaling a triple of keys, to seize the thickness of felt advancing, to hear the muffled hammer fall in action. 2 sheets, cream vellum paper, 1 reserve, 2 envelopes. When I was in Wisdom Healy's Wise Bloom, in Daly's Henry Flower bought. Are you not happy in your home? Flower to console me in a pin cut slow. Means something, language of flow. Was it a daisy? Innocence, that is. Respectable girl, meet after mass. Tanks awfully muchly. Wise Bloom eyed on the door a poster, a swaying mermaid smoking mid nice waves. Smoke mermaids, coolest whiff of all. Hair streaming, lovelorn, for some man, for Raoul. He eyed and saw afar on Essex Bridge a gay hat riding on a jaunting car. It is, again, third time, coincidence.
It's now 5 p.m. and we head over to meet our characters in Barry Kieran's pub.
After Paddy Dignam's funeral, his cronies meet up in Barney Kieran's pub, where they encounter an Irish made, man-eating monster, their very own Cyclops.
It was early, early, all in the spring. The birds did whistle and did sweetly sing, changing their notes from tree to tree. And the song they sang was Old Ireland Free. Oh, as I went walking up Wexford Street, my own first cousin I did chance to meet. My own first cousin did me betray, and for one bare guinea sold my life away. And as I mounted the platform high, my aged father was standing by. My aged father did me deny, and the name he gave me was the Crappy Boy.
I was just passing the time of day with old Troy there of the DMP at the corner of Aberhill, and be damned, but a bloody sweep came along and he nearly threw his gear into me eye. I turned around to let him have the weight of me tongue. Well, who should I see dodging along Stony Batter? Only Joe Hines. Oh, you blowing, Joe? Did you see that bloody chimney sweep? He near shoved my eye out with his brush.
Such luck! Who's the old ballocks you was talking to?
Old Troy was in the force. Look, I'm in two minds not to give that fella in charge for obstructing the thoroughfare with his brooms and his ladders.
Are you strict, TT?
Well, I'm not taking anything between drinks, Joe.
Well, what about paying our respects to our friend?
The citizen.
Aye.
Having a great confab with that bloody dog of his, Gary Owen, and he waiting for what the sky would drop in the way of a drink. Sure, it'd be a corporal work of mercy to take it and wring its bloody neck. Mangy old bastard.
Stand and deliver.
That's all right, citizen. There's friends here.
Pass, friends. Now, Backlash.
The figure seated on a large boulder at the foot of a round tower was that of a broad-shouldered, deep-chested, strong-limbed, frank-eyed, red-haired, freely freckled, shaggy-bearded, wide-mouthed, large-nosed, long-headed, deep-voiced, bare-kneed, brawny-handed, hairy-legged, ruddy-faced, sinewy-armed hero. From shoulder to shoulder he measured several ells, and his rock-like mountainous knees were covered, as was likewise the rest of his body wherever visible, with a strong growth of tawny, prickly hair, in hue and toughness similar to the mountain gorse, Ulex europaeus. The wide-winged nostrils, from which bristles of the same tawny hue projected, were of such capaciousness that within their cavernous obscurity the field lark might easily have lodged her nest. The eyes, in which a tear and a smile strove ever for the mastery, were of the dimensions of a good-sized cauliflower. A powerful current of warm breath issued at regular intervals from the profound capacity of his mouth, while in rhythmic resonance the loud, strong, hail reverberations of this formidable heart thundered rumblingly, causing the ground, the summit of the lofty tower, and the still loftier walls of the cave to vibrate and tremble.
And what's your opinion of the times?
I think the market's run the rise.
Foreign wars is the cause of it.
Aye, it's the Russians wish to tyrannize.
And give over your bloody cotton, Joe. I'm blue mouthy for want of a pint.
3 points, Terry.
Jesus, a quid. Well, you're robbing the poor box, Joe.
Sweating me brow. 'Twas the prudent member gave me the wheeze on throwaway. Came in 20-1, rank outsider.
Bloom gave you the tip. I saw him before I met you, sloping around by Pill Lane with his cod's eyes, counting up all the guts of the fish. Your health, down the farm.
Clear to God, I could hear that pint hit the pit of me stomach with a click.
And little Alf Bergen popped in around the door and hid behind Barney Snug, squeezed up with the laughing. And who was sitting up there in the corner that I hadn't seen, snoring drunk, blind to the world, only Bob Doran. Now, I didn't know what was up, and Alf kept making signs out the door. And begob, what was it? Only that bloody old pantaloons Dennis Breen in his bath slippers, with 2 bloody big boots tucked under his oxter, and the wife hot foot after him. Unfortunate wretched woman, trotting like a poodle. I thought Alf would split.
Look at him, Breen. He's traipsing around all Dublin with a postcard someone sent him with UP up on it to take a
Take a what?
To take a libel action for £10,000.
Oh hell!
Here's Alf. Repeat the dose, Terry.
May your shadow never grow less.
And how is Willie Murray these times, Alf?
I don't know. I saw him just now in Capel Street with Paddy Dignam, only I was running after that.
You what? With who?
With Dignam.
Is it Paddy?
Yes, why?
Don't you know he's dead?
Paddy Dignam dead?
Aye.
Sure, I'm after seeing him not 5 minutes ago. He's playing as a pike staff.
Well, you saw his ghost then. Oh, God between us and all harm.
What? Good Christ, only 5 and Willie Murray with the 2 of them there near whatchamacallum. What? Take them dead. Dead? He's no more dead than you are.
Well, maybe so. But they took the liberty of burying him this morning anyhow. Paid the debt of nature. God be merciful to him.
Good Christ, I could have sworn it was him.
He was what you might call flabbergasted.
Good Christ, I could have sworn it was him.
Says Bob Doran with the hat in the back of his paw, lowest blackguard in Dublin when he's under the influence.
Who said Christ was good?
I beg your parsnips.
Is that a good Christ to take away poor little Willie Dignam?
Ah, well, he's over his troubles.
He's a bloody ruffian. I say, to take away poor little Willie Dignam.
And Bob Doran starts doing the weeps about Paddy Dignam. True as you're there.
The finest man, the finest, purest character, the noblest, the truest. And he's gone. Poor little Willie Dignam. Poor little Paddy Dignam.
Oh, the tear is bloody near your eye, talking through his bloody hat. Fitter for him to go home to that little sleepwalking bitch he married. Mooney, the bum bailiff's daughter. Mother kept a kip in Hardwick Street that used to be stravaiging around the landings. Bantam Lyons told me that was stopping there at 2 in the morning without a stitch on her. Exposing her person open to all comers, fair field and no favour.
Come in, he won't hit you.
Hello, Bloom. What do you have?
Well, I don't really. Not at this time. No offense. Besides, I promised Martin Cunningham I'd. Well, if you insist, I'll just take a cigar.
He's the prudent member and no mistake. And they start talking about capital punishment. And of course, Bloom comes out with the why and the wherefore and all the codology of the business and the old dog smelling him all the time.
There's one thing it hasn't a deterrent effect on.
What's that?
The poor bugger's tool that's being hanged.
Is that so?
God's truth. I heard that from the head warder that was in Kilmainham when they hanged Joe Brady the Invincible. He told me that when they cut him down after the drop, it was standing up in their faces like a poke.
Ruling passion strong in death, as someone said.
That can be explained by science. It's only a natural phenomenon, don't you see? Because on account of the...
And then he starts on with his jawbreakers about phenomenon and science and this phenomenon and the other phenomenon. The fat heap he married is a nice old phenomenon and the back on it like a ball alley. So, of course, the citizen was only waiting for the wink of the word, and he starts gassing on out of him about the Invincibles and the old guard and the men of 67 and who fears to speak of 98 and a new Ireland and this, that and the other. Talking about a new Ireland, he ought to go get a new bloody dog, so he ought, scratching his scabs and sniffling and sneezing all around the bloody place.
A new Ireland built on the bones of the glorious dead. Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin awad, the friends we love are by our side, and the foes we hate before us.
And off they started again about Irish sport and Shoneen games and about hurley and putting the stone and racy of the soil and building up a nation once again and all that.
Talking about violent exercise, were you at that Coe Bennett match?
No.
I heard so-and-so made a cool £100 over it.
Who?
Blazes. He let out that Myler was on the beer to run the odds, and he's swatting all the time.
Ah, we know him, Boylan, the traitor's son. We know what put English gold in his pocket.
Myler dusted the floor with him. See, the little kipper not up to his navel, and the big fella swiping. God, he gave him one last puck in the wind. Queensberry rules and all. Made him puke when he never ate. Oh, Blazes knows what side his bread is buttered. I hear he is running a concert tour now up in the north.
He is, isn't he, Bloom?
Who? Oh, yes, that's quite true. Yes, a kind of a summer tour, you see, just a holiday.
Mrs. B is the bright particular star, isn't she?
My wife, yes, she's singing, yes. I think it'll be a success, too. He's an excellent man to organize, excellent.
Oh, ho, ho, me gums, says I to myself. Although that explains the milk in the coconut and the absence of hair on the animal's chest. Blazes doing the tootles on the flute. Ooh. Concert tour. Dirty Dan the Dodger's son off Island Bridge that sold the same horses twice over to the government to fight the Boers. Old what? I called about the poor and the water rate, Mr. Boylan. You what? The water rate, Mr. Boylan. You what? Blazes is the buckle that'll organise or take my tip twixt me and you. Cotterish?
Same again, Terry. You sure now, Bloom?
Thank you. No, I'm here to see Martin Cunningham about this matter of poor Dignam's insurance. You see, Dignam, I mean, he didn't serve any notice of the assignment of the company at the time, and nominally under the Act, the mortgagee can't recover on the policy.
Holy war! That's a good one if old Shylock's landed. So, the wife comes out top dog, eh?
Well, that's a point for the wife's admirers.
Whose admirers?
The wife's advisors, I mean.
It's on the march, the Irish language. To hell with the bloody brutal Sassenachs and their patois.
They built a civilization on it.
Civilization is what you mean. To hell with them. The curse of a good-for-nothing god light sideways on the bloody thick-lug sons of whores gets. Any civilization they have, they stole from us. Tongue-tied sons of bastards' ghosts.
The European...
They're not European. I was in Europe with Kevin Egan of Paris. You couldn't see a trace of them or their language anywhere in Europe, except in a cabinet distance.
The Irish language and the Gaelic League and the Shawnees that can't speak their own language. Christ, it'd give you heartburn on your arse. Ireland sober, is Ireland free? All wind and piss like a tan-yard cat. As much as his bloody life is worth to go down and address his tall talk to the assembled multitude in Shannagolden, where he daren't show his nose with the Molly Maguires looking for him to let daylight through him for grabbing the holdings of an evicted tenant.
What about the fighting navy that keeps our foes at bay?
I'll tell you what about it. Hell upon earth it is. Your glorious British Navy that bosses the earth. That's the great empire they boast of. drudges and whipped serfs.
But isn't discipline the same everywhere? I mean, wouldn't it be the same here if we put force against force?
We'll put force against force. We have our greater Ireland beyond the sea. They were driven out of house and home in the Black 47. Aye, they drove out the peasants in hordes. But those that came to the land of the free remember the land of bondage. And they will come again with a vengeance, the champions of Kathleen Ní Houlihan.
We're a long time waiting for that day, citizen, since the poor old woman that told us the French were on the sea and landed at Killala.
The French? What did they ever do for us, the French? Said the dancing masters. Never worth a roasted fart to Ireland. As for the Germans, haven't we had enough of those sausage-eating bastards on the throne, from George the Elector to the flatulent old bitch that's dead?
Well, we have Edward the Peacemaker now.
There's a bloody sight more pox than packs about that bio.
Could you make a hole in another point?
Could have swim, Duck. Bloom was quite excited with his dun duckety mud-coloured mug on him and his old plum eyes rolling about.
But all countries have been persecuted. The history of the world is full of it, perpetuating national hatred among nations.
Yeah, but do you know what a nation means?
Well, a nation is the same people living in the same place.
By God, then, if that's so, I'm a nation, for I'm living in the same place for the past 5 years.
What's your nation, if I may ask?
Ireland. I was born here. Ireland.
Here, shove us over some more drink here.
And I belong to a race too that is hated and persecuted, also now. This very moment, this very instant, robbed, plundered, insulted, persecuted.
Are you talking about the New Jerusalem?
No, I'm talking about injustice.
Right. Stand up to it then, with force like men.
But it's no use, I say. It's no use. Force, hatred, history, all that. That's not life for men and women. Insult and hatred. Everybody knows it's the opposite of that. That's really life.
What?
Love. Well, I mean the opposite of hatred. I must go now. If Martin comes, say I'll be back in a second.
Who's hindering you? And off he pops like greased lightning.
A new apostle for the Gentiles. Universal love.
Well, isn't that what we're told? Love thy neighbour.
Love that chap. Beggar me neighbour is his motto. Love Margot. He's a nice pattern of a Romeo and Juliet.
I know where he's gone. He's gone to collect his own shekels on throwaway.
Is it that white-eyed Kaffir that never backed a horse in anger in his life?
God save Ireland from the likes of that bloody mouse about Mr. Bloom and his argo-bargo, and his owl fella before him, perpetuating frauds, old Methuselah Broom, the robbing bagman that poisoned himself with the prussic acid after he swamped the country with his baubles and his penny diamonds, loans by post on easy terms, any amount of money advanced on an out of hand, distance no object, no security. Gob, he's like Lanty McHale's goat. To go a piece of the road with anyone.
Here's Cunningham, the man that'll tell you all about it.
Where's Bloom? He said he'd be here.
He's off defrauding widows and orphans.
What is he, for God's sake? A Jew or a Gentile or a Holy Roman or a swatter? What the hell is he?
Simple enough. A Hungarian Jew born in Ireland.
Is he a cousin of Bloom the dentist?
Oh, not at all. Only namesakes. His name was Virag, the father's name that poisoned himself. He changed it by Deepole, the father did.
That's the new Messiah for Ireland. Ireland of saints and sages.
Well, they're still waiting for their Redeemer. For that matter, so are we.
And every male that's born, they think he might be their Messiah. And every Jew is in a tall state of excitement, so they say, till he knows if he's a father or a mother, expecting every moment will be his next.
Oh, my God, you should have seen him before that son of his was born. Well, that now, of course. dithering like it was him that was pregnant.
Do you call that a man?
I wonder, did he ever put it out of sight?
Well, a son was born anyway.
And who does he suspect?
It's a wise child that knows his own father.
God, there's many a true word spoken jest.
Oh, Martin, I was just round the courthouse looking for you. I hope I'm not.
Courthouse me eye, and his pockets hanging down with gold and silver. Cute as a shithouse rat. Mean bloody scut. Standards to drink itself. Devil of sweet fear. All for number one.
No, we're ready.
And he get them out of there as quick as he could. Up with them on the bloody jaunty car. But begob, I was just lowering the heel of a point when I saw the citizen getting up to waddle to the door, puffing and blowing with the dropsy, and he cursing the curse of Cromwell on him. Bell, book, and candle in Irish, spitting and spatting out of him, and Joe and little Alf around him like a leprechaun, trying to pacify him.
Let me alone. 3 cheers for Israel.
And sit down on the parliamentary side of your arse, for Christ's sake. And don't be making such a bloody exhibition of yourself. Jesus, there's always some bloody clown or other kicking up bloody more than about bloody nothing. God might have turned the porter sour in your guts, so it would. And all the ragamuffins and the sluts of the nation round the door, and Martin telling the Jarvey to drive ahead, and the citizen bawling, and Alf and Joe at him to whisht, and he on his high horse about the Jews, and the loafers calling for a speech, and one with a patch over his eye starts singing, "If the man in the moon was a Jew, Jew, Jew," and a slut shouts out of her,
Hey, mister, your fly is open, mister.
Mendelssohn was a Jew, and Karl Marx, and Mercadante, and Spinoza, and the Savior was a Jew, and his father was a Jew, your God.
He had no father. That'll do now. Drive ahead, Jarvey.
Who's God?
Well, his uncle was a Jew. Your God was a Jew. Christ was a Jew like me.
By Jesus, I'll brain that bloody Jew man for using the holy name. By Jesus, I'll crucify him. Someone will give us that biscuit box over here.
Stop.
Where is he till I murder him?
Get up there, Bloom. Drive off, Jarvey.
Hold on there, citizen.
the bloody nag took fright, and the old mongrel after the car like bloody hell, and all the populace shouting and laughing, and the old tin box clattering along the road.
Did I kill him or what? After him, Gary, after him, boy.
Last we saw was the bloody car rounding the corner, and old sheep face on it gesticulating, and the bloody mongrel after it with his lugs back for all it was bloody well worth to tear him from limb. You never saw the like of it in all your born puff. Well, I'm off. I'll be in for the last gospel.
When lo, there came upon them all a great brightness, and they beheld the chariot wherein he stood ascend to heaven. And they beheld him in the chariot, clothed upon in the glory of the brightness, having raiment as of the sun, fair as the moon, and terrible, that for all they durst not look upon him. And there came a voice out of heaven calling, Elijah, Elijah! And he answered with a main cry, Abba, Adonai! And they beheld him, even him, Ben, Bloom, Elijah, amid clouds and angels, ascend to the glory of the brightness at an angle of 45 degrees over Donohue's in Little Green Street, like a shot off a shovel.
God save Ireland, said the heroes. God save Ireland, said they all. Whether on the scaffold high or the battlefield we die, well, what matter when for Erin dear we fall?
It's 8:25 p.m. and young Gertie MacDowell, full of romantic whimsy, lingers on the beach with friends minding children. Is she a love-crazy young girl, but not quite that innocent? You decide.
Gertie MacDowell was seated near her companions, lost in thought and gazing far away into the distance. In truth, she was a fair specimen of winsome Irish girlhood. She was pronounced beautiful by all who knew her, though folks often said she was more of a Giltrap than she was a MacDowell. Her figure was slight and graceful, inclining even to fragility. It was those iron jelloids that she had been taking that had done her the world of good. They were much better than the Widow Welsh's female pills, and she was much better of those discharges and that tired feeling. The now waxen pallor of her face was almost spiritual in its ivory-like purity. Her rosebud mouth was a genuine Cupid's bow, Greekly perfect. Her hands were a finely veiled alabaster with tapering fingers and as white as lemon juice and queenly by all ointments. Though it was not true that she used to wear kid gloves to bed or take a milk-foot bath. It was that Bertha Supple that told this to Eddie Boardman, a deliberate lie, when she was blackout daggers at Gertie. And she told her to not let on that it was she who told, or she'd never speak to her again. No honor where honor is due. The girl chums, of course, had their little tiffs from time to time like the rest. There was an innate refinement, a languid, haughty, queenly hauteur about Gertie, which was unmistakably evidenced in her delicate hands and her high-arched instep. Had fate been kind enough to will her be born a gentle woman of high degree in her own right, and had she only had the benefit of a good education, Gertie McDowell might easily have held her own beside any lady in the land and have seen herself exquisitely gowned with jewels on her brow and patrician suitors vying at her feet to pay their devours to her. Mayhap it was this, the love that might have been, that lent to her softly featured face at whiles a look tense with suppressed meaning, that imparted a strange yearning tendency to the beautiful eyes that charmed few could resist. Why have women such witchery in their eyes? Gertie's were of the bluest Irish blue, set off by lustrous lashes and dark, expressive brows. Time was when those brows were not so silkily seductive. It was Madame Vera Verity, the directress of the Women's Beautiful page, who had first advised her to try eyebrow line, which gave the haunting expression to the eyes, and she had never regretted it. But Gertie's crowning glory was her wealth of wonderful hair. It was dark brown with a natural wave in it, and she cut it that very morning on account of the new moon. It nestled about her pretty head in a profusion of luxuriant clusters. And just now, at Eddie's words, a telltale flush, delicate as the faintest rosebloom, crept into her cheeks. She looked so lovely with her sweet girlish shyness that a surety of God's fair land of Ireland did not hold her equal.
This is Ithaca.
Beginning now. What parallel courses did Bloom and Stephen follow returning?
Starting united, both at normal walking pace from Beresford Place, they followed in the order named Lower and Middle Gardner Streets and Mountjoy Square west. Then at reduced pace, each bearing left Gardner's Place by an inadvertence as far as the farther corner of Temple Street. Then at reduced pace with interruptions of halt, bearing right, Temple Street north as far as Hardwick Place. Approaching disparate at relaxed walking pace, they crossed both the circus before George's Church diametrically, the chord in any circle being less than the arc which it subtends.
Of what did the duumvirate deliberate during their itinerary?
Music, literature, Ireland, Dublin, Paris, friendship, woman, prostitution, diet, the influence of gaslight, or the light of arc and glow lamps on the growth of adjoining paraheliotropic trees, exposed corporation emergency dust buckets, the Roman Catholic Church, ecclesiastical celibacy, the Irish nation, Jesuit education, careers, the study of medicine, the past day, the maleficent influence of the pre-Sabbath, Stephen's collapse.
Did Bloom discover common factors of similarity between their respective like and unlike reactions to experience?
Both were sensitive to artistic impression, musical in preference to plastic or pictorial. Both preferred a continental to an insular manner of life, a cisatlantic to a transatlantic place of residence. Both, indurated by early domestic training and an inherited tenacity of heterodox resistance, profess their disbelief in many orthodox religious, national, social, and ethical doctrines. Both admitted the alternately stimulating and obtunding influence of heterosexual magnetism.
Were their views on some points divergent?
Well, Stephen dissented openly from Bloom's views on the importance of dietary and civic self-help, while Bloom dissented tacitly from Stephen's views on the eternal affirmation of the spirit of man in literature. Bloom assented covertly to Stephen's rectification of the anachronism involved in assigning the date of the conversion of the Irish nation to Christianity from Druidism by Patrick, son of Calpornis, son of Potitus, son of Odysseus, sent by Pope Celestine I in the year 432, in the reign of Leary to the year 260 or thereabouts, in the reign of Cormac MacCart, died 266 AD, suffocated by imperfect deglutition of aliment at Sletty and interred at Rossnaree. The collapse, which Bloom ascribed to gastric inanition and certain chemical compounds of varying degrees of adulteration and alcoholic strength, accelerated by mental exertion and the velocity of rapid circular motion in a relaxing atmosphere, Stephen attributed to the reapparition of a matutinal cloud perceived by both from two different points of observation, Sandy Cove and Dublin, at first no bigger than a woman's hand.
Was there one point on which their views were equal and negative?
The influence of gaslight or electric light on the growth of adjoining paraheliotropic trees.
What act did Bloom make on their arrival at their destination?
At the house steps of the fourth of the equidifferent uneven numbers, number 7 Eccles Street, he inserted his hand mechanically into the back pocket of his trousers to obtain his latchkey.
Was it there?
It was in the corresponding pocket of the trousers which he had worn on the day but one preceding.
Why was he doubly irritated?
Because he had forgotten, and because he remembered that he had reminded himself twice not to forget.
What then were the alternatives before the premeditatedly, respectively, and inadvertently keyless couple?
To enter or not to enter. To knock or not to knock.
Bloom's decision?
A stratagem. Resting his feet on the dwarf wall, he climbed over the area railings, compressed his hat on his head, grasped 2 points at the lower union of rails and stiles, lowered his body gradually by its length of 5 feet 9 inches and a half to within 2 feet 10 inches of the area pavement, and allowed his body to move freely in space by separating himself from the railings and crouching in preparation for the impact of the fall.
Did he rise uninjured by concussion?
Regaining a new stable equilibrium, he rose uninjured, though concussed by the impact, raised the latch of the area door by the exertion of force at its freely moving flange, and by leverage of the first kind applied at its fulcrum, gained retarded access to the kitchen through the subadjacent scullery, ignited a lucifer match by friction, set free inflammable coal gas by turning on the vent cock, lit a high flame, which by regulating he reduced to quiescent candescence, and lit finally a portable candle.
Did the man reappear elsewhere?
After a lapse of 4 minutes, the glimmer of his candle was discernible through the semi-transparent, semicircular glass fanlight over the hall door. The hall door turned gradually on its hinges. In the open space of the doorway, the man reappeared without his hat, with his candle.
Did Stephen obey his sign?
Yes. Entering softly, he helped to close and chain the door, and followed softly along the hallway, the man's back and listed feet, and lighted candle past a lighted crevice of doorway on the left, and carefully down a turning staircase of more than 5 steps into the kitchen of Bloom's house.
What did Bloom see on the range?
On the right, smaller hob, a blue enameled saucepan. On the left, larger hob, a black iron kettle.
What did Bloom do at the range?
He removed the saucepan to the left hob, rose, and carried the iron kettle to the sink in order to tap the current by turning the faucet to let it flow.
Having set the half-filled kettle on the now burning coals, why did he return to the still flowing tap?
To wash his soiled hands with a partially consumed tablet of Barrington's lemon-flavored soap, to which papers still adhered, bought 13 hours previously for 4d and still unpaid for, in fresh, cold, never-changing, ever-changing water, and dry them, face and hands, in a long red bordered Holland cloth passed over a wooden revolving roller.
What reason did Stephen give for declining Bloom's offer?
That he was a hydrophobe, hating partial contact by immersion or total by submersion in cold water. His last bath having taken place in the month of October of the preceding year, disliking the aqueous substances of glass and crystal, distrusting aquosities of thought and language.
What impeded Bloom from giving Stephen counsels of hygiene and prophylactic, to which he should be added suggestions concerning a preliminary wetting of the head and contraction of the muscles with rapid splashing of the face and neck and thoracic and epigastric region in case of sea or river bathing, the parts of the human anatomy most sensitive to cold being the nape, stomach, and thenar or sole of foot?
The incompatibility of aquacity with the erratic originality of a genius.
What additional didactic counsels did he similarly repress?
Dietary. Concerning the respective percentage of protein and caloric energy in bacon, salt ling, and butter, the absence of the former in the last named, and the abundance of the latter in the first named.
Which seemed to the host to be the predominant qualities of his guest?
Confidence in himself, and equal opposite power of abandonment and recuperation.
What is home without Plumtree's potted meat?
Incomplete. With it, an abode of bliss. Manufactured by George Plumtree, 23 Merchants Quay, Dublin, put up in 4-ounce pots and inserted by Councillor Joseph P. Nanetti, MP, Rotunda Ward, 19 Hardwick Street, under the obituary notices and anniversaries of deceases. The name on the label is Plumtree, a plum tree in a meat pot, registered trademark. Beware of imitations, Pete Mott, Trump Lee, Mouthpat, I am true.
In what order of precedence, with what attendant ceremony was the exodus from the house of bondage with a wilderness of inhabitation affected.
Lighted candle in stick borne by Bloom. Diaconal hat on ash plant borne by Stephen.
What did each do at the door of egress?
Bloom set the candlestick on the floor. Stephen put the hat on his head.
For what creature was the door of egress a door of ingress?
For a cat.
What spectacle confronted them when they, first the host, then the guest, emerged silently, doubly dark, from obscurity by a passage from the rear of the house into the penumbra of the garden?
The heaven tree of stars hung with humid night blue fruit.
What visible luminous sign attracted Bloom's, who attracted Stephen's, gaze?
In the second story rear of his Bloom's house, the light of a paraffin oil lamp with oblique shade projected on a screen of roller blind, supplied by Frank O'Hara, window blind, curtain pole, and revolving shutter manufacturer, 16 Ondier Street.
How did he elucidate the mystery of an invisible attractive person, his wife, Marion Molly Bloom, denoted by a visible splendid sign, a lamp?
With indirect and direct verbal allusions or affirmations, with subdued affection and admiration, with description, with impediment, with suggestion.
Both then were silent?
Silent, each contemplating the other in both mirrors of the reciprocal flesh of their his, not his fellow faces.
Were they indefinitely inactive?
Well, at Stephen's suggestion, at Bloom's instigation, both, first Stephen, then Bloom, in penumbra, urinated, their sides contiguous, their organs of micturition reciprocally rendered invisible by manual circumposition, their gazes, first Bloom's, then Stephen's, elevated to the projected luminous and semi-luminous shadow.
How did the centripetal remainer afford egress to the centrifugal departer?
By inserting the barrel of a originated male key in the hole of an unstable female lock, obtaining a purchase on the bow of the key and turning it towards from right to left, withdrawing a bolt from its staple, pulling inward spasmodically, an obsolescent, unhinged door, and revealing an aperture for free egress and free ingress.
How did they take leave one of the other in separation?
Standing perpendicular at the same door and on different sides of its base, the lines of their valedictory arms meeting at any point and forming any angle less than the sum of two right angles.
What sound accompanied the union of their tangent, the disunion of their respectively centrifugal and centripetal hands?
The sound of the peal of the hour of the night by the chime of the bells in the church of St. George.
What echoes of that sound were by both and each heard?
By Stephen, Liliata rutilantium turma circumdet jubilantium te Virginium chorus excipiat. By Bloom, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho.
Alone, what did Bloom hear?
The double reverberation of retreating feet on the heaven-born earth, the double vibration of a Jew's harp in the resident lane.
What prospect of what phenomena inclined him to remain?
The disparition of three final stars, the diffusion of daybreak, the apparition of a new solar disk.
Did he remain?
With deep inspiration, he returned, retraversing the garden, re-entering the passage, reclosing the door. With brief suspiration, he reassumed the candle, reascended the stairs, reapproached the door of the front room, hall floor, and re-entered.
What miscellaneous effects of female personnel wearing apparel were perceived by him.
A pair of new, inodorous, half-silk black ladies' hose, a pair of new violet garters, a pair of outsized ladies' drawers of India mull, cut on generous lines, redolent of opopanax, jessamine, and Murati's Turkish cigarettes, and containing a long, bright steel safety pin, folded curvilinear, a camisole of batiste with thin lace border, an accordion underskirt, a blue silk marwette, all these objects being disposed irregularly on the top of a rectangular trunk, quadruple battened, having capped corners with multicolored labels, installed on its foreside in white lettering BCT.
Brian Cooper Tweedy. Bloom's axe.
He deposited the articles of clothing on a chair, removed his remaining articles of clothing, took from beneath the bolster at the head of the bed a folded long white nightshirt, inserted his head and arms into the proper apertures of the nightshirt, removed a pillow from the head to the foot of the bed, prepared the bed linen accordingly, and entered the bed.
How?
With circumspection, as invariably when entering an abode, his own or not his own. With solicitude, the snake spiral springs of the mattress being old, the brass quoits and pendant viper radii loose and tremulous under stress and strain. Prudently, as entering a lair or ambush of lust or adders. Lightly, the less to disturb. Reverently, the bed of conception and of birth, of consummation of marriage and of breach of marriage, of sleep and of death.
What did his limbs, when gradually extended, encounter?
New clean bed linen, additional odors, the presence of a human form, female, hers, the imprint of a human form, male, not his. Some crumbs, some flakes of potted meat recooked, which he removed.
Then?
He kissed the plump, mellow, yellow, smellow melons of her rump, or each plump melanous hemisphere in their mellow yellow furrow with obscure, prolonged, provocative melon smellinous osculation.
The visible signs of post-satisfaction?
A silent contemplation, a tentative velation, a gradual abasement, a solicitous aversion, a proximate erection.
What followed this silent action?
Somnolent invocation, less somnolent recognition, incipient excitation, catechetical interrogation.
In what posture?
Listener, reclined semilaterally left hand under head, right leg extended in a straight line and resting on left leg flexed in the attitude of Gaetellus, fulfilled, recumbent, big with seed. Narrator, reclined laterally, left with right and left legs flexed, the index finger and thumb of the right hand resting on the bridge of the nose, in the attitude depicted in a snapshot photograph made by Percy Upjohn, the child man weary, the man-child in the womb.
Womb? Weary?
He rests. He has traveled.
With?
Sinbad the sailor, and Tinbad the tailor, and Jinbad the jailer, and Whinbad the whaler, Ninbad the nailer, and Finbad the failer, and Binbad the bailer, and Pinbad the paler, and Minbad the mailer, and Hinbad the hailer, and Rinbad the railer, and Dinbad the caler, and Vinbad the quailer, and Linbad the yailer, and Zinbad the failer.
When?
Going to dark bed, there was a square, round Sinbad the sailor's rocks, ox, egg in the night of the bed of all the ox of the rocks of Darkenbad and Bright Daler.
Where? Period.
Period.
Now, for our last piece of the evening, we're going to hand over to Molly herself. Those of a sensitive disposition, leave now. Molly Bloom lies in bed late at night beside her husband Leopold, thinking and reminiscing about their first meeting and about when she knew she was in love with him.
A quarter after what? Oh, an unearthly hour. I suppose they're just getting up in China now, combing out their pigtails for the day. We'll soon have the nuns ringing the Angelus. They've nobody coming in to spoil their sleep except an odd priest or two for his night office. Or the alarm clock next door at cockshout, clattering the brains out of itself. Oh, let me see if I can doze off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kind of flowers are those they invented? Like the stars. The wallpaper in Lombard Street was much nicer, but the apron he gave me was like that. Something, I only wore it twice. Oh, better lower this lamp and try again so I can get up early. I'll go to Lamb's there beside Finlater's and get them to send us some flowers to put about the place in case he brings them home again tomorrow. Oh, today I mean. Oh no, Friday's an unlucky day. First I want to do the place up some way. The dust grows in it, I think, while I'm asleep. And then we can have music and cigarettes. I can accompany him. First I must clean the keys of the piano with milk. What'll I wear? Shall I wear a white rose? Or those fairy cakes and Liptons? I love the smell of a rich big shop at 7 halfpenny a pound, or the other ones with the cherries in them and the pinky sugar at 11 pence a couple of pounds of those. A nice plant for the middle of the table. I'd get that cheaper now in, where's this? I saw that not long ago. Oh, I love flowers. I'd love to have the whole place swimming in roses. Oh, God of heaven, there's nothing like nature. The wild mountains and the sea and the waves rushing, and then the beautiful country with the fields of oats and wheat and all kinds of things, and all the fine cattle going about that would do your heart good to see. Rivers and lakes and flowers, all sorts of shapes and smells and colours, springing up even out of the ditches. Primroses and violets. Nature it is. Well, as for them saying there's no God, I wouldn't give a snap of me 2 fingers for all their learning. Why don't they go and create something I often asked them, atheists or whatever they call themselves? Go and wash the cobbles off themselves first, and then they go howling for the priest and they dying. And why? Why? Because they're afraid of hell on account of their bad conscience. Ah, yes, I know them well. Who was the first person in the universe before there was anybody that made it all? Who? Ah, that they don't know, well, neither do I. So there you are. You might as well try to stop the sun from rising tomorrow. The sun shines for you, he said the day we were lying among the rhododendrons on Howth Head, with the tweed suit and his straw hat. The day I got him to propose to me, yes. First I gave him the little bit of seed cake out of my mouth, and it was leap year like this year, yes. Oh, 16 years ago, my God. After that long kiss, I near lost my breath, yes. He said I was a flower of the mountain, yes. So we are, all flowers, all a woman's body. Oh, yes, that was one true thing he said in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes, that was why I liked him, because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get around him. And I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes. And I wouldn't answer first. I only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things he didn't know, of Mulvey and Mr. Stanhope and Hester and Father and old Captain Groves and the sailors playing All Birds Fly and I Say Stoop and washing up dishes, they call it, on the pier, and the sentry in front of the governor's house with the thing around his white helmet, the poor devil half roasted, and the Spanish girls laughing in their shawls and their tall combs, and the actions in the morning, and the Greek and the Jews and the Arabs and the devil knows who else from all the ends of Europe. And Duke Street and the fowl market all clucking outside Larby Sharon's, and the poor donkeys slipping half asleep, and the vague fellas in the cloaks asleep in the shade on the steps, and the big wheels of the carts of the bulls, and the old castle thousands of years old. Yes, and those handsome Moors, all in white and turbans like kings, asking you to sit down in their little bit of a shop, and Rhonda with the old windows of the posadas, 2 glancing eyes, a lattice hid for her lover to kiss the iron, and the wine shops half open at night, and the castanets, and the night we missed the boat at Algeciras, the watchman going about serene with his lamp, and oh, that awful deep down torrent. Oh, and the sea, crimson, sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets, and the fig trees in the Alameda Gardens. Yes, and all the queer little streets, and the pink and blue and yellow houses, and the rose gardens, and the jessamine and geraniums, and cactuses, and Gibraltar as a girl, where I was a flower of the mountain. Yes, when I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls used, or shall I wear a red? Yes, and how he kissed me on the Moorish wall, and I thought, well, as well him as another, and then I asked him with my eyes to ask again, yes, and he asked me, would I, yes, to say yes, my mountain flower, and first I put my arms around him, yes, and drew him down to me so he could feel my breast all perfume, yes, and his heart was going like mad, and yes, I said yes, I will, yes.
That concludes our evening, everyone. So I'm going to ask all the performers to turn their cameras and their microphones back on for a second. I know we can't see our audience, but I'd like you all to take a bow anyway. I hope everyone kind of watching enjoyed. That was fantastic. To all of you for kind of your time tonight. And I hope you, the performers, enjoyed it. I hope you, the viewers, enjoyed it. I know I did. Learned a lot about Joyce. I think a lot of people at home will have too. So if everyone wants to take their final bow, we will close for the evening. So thank you all very much.
Night.
And thank you, Laura, and thank you, Rosemary.
Thanks,
Yes.
Laura. Thanks, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. That was
Thanks,
marvelous.
everybody.
It was
Night.
lovely
Bye-bye.
to be part of it.